Yes. Another episode of the OSP. Hope you joined us on Sunday. That was some ridiculous fun. The defenders didn't really come through for us, but, it was football. And I'll tell you what, there was people there. There was people there, and that's a nice stadium. Go ahead, Gene. Go ahead.
Tamu is doo-doo.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
I was hyping him up. I was like, so.
Yeah, we all did.
But this ain't about Tamu. A sense of optimism comes over every NFL team after the draft happens. You guys know that. Every analyst paints a great picture of the latest and greatest rookies that each team selected. And let's face it, everybody thinks winning the Super Bowl seems to be a realistic possibility for each team in every division. Is it really, though? Come on now. Come on. Our guest this evening is Sports Illustrator and Pittsburgh native writer Noah Strackbein. He'll be on a little bit later in the show. He's going to help us dissect how things unfolded. He helped themselves, who helped themselves really, who is living in a fantasy land with their draft. Make sure you reach out to us with your comments and questions as we put up a nice big bow from the 2024 NFL draft. Now we're waiting for Coach Noobs right now. He was at his girls' track meet. He's getting ready to join us here in a couple of seconds. But fellas, how we doing? Chops, break it down for me. How are you, my man?
Man, I'm good. I mean, I didn't get into the draft like you guys did, but I'm excited for what the Steelers did in the draft, reading everybody's comments, but I was optimistic even before the draft with the moves they made. But I'm ready, Freddie.
Hey, there's our guy, Daniel, man. What's good, Daniel? Thanks for joining us on another Tuesday night. Always love to see you as part of the crowd in attendance and chiming in.
Dan the man.
TC. Hey, T-Sizz, you were pretty calm on Sunday. You feeling okay?
I was feeling just fine. No more whiskey.
NMW.
No winning solution. No more whiskey.
No more whiskey. Sheen, you didn't enjoy the game, did you?
I did. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't, I thought it would be a lot better, but it was.
You see why those guys are second-tier professionals. Other than like maybe Hakeem Butler, you see why those guys are second-level professionals.
Right.
I did think Hakeem Butler
he looked good.
Well, at the end of the day, he was head and shoulders above everybody.
Right. I think
about the company, the atmosphere.
Yeah,
and just hanging out, the fanfare was really fun.
I mean, but there were a lot of passes where we were like, "Why isn't he throwing it to the first read? He's wide open."
He did. Tamu did the first read. It was that linebacker going to the flats.
Yeah. Hey, look, Chops. If you've never been to a UFL game, all four of us will tell you this: there is no separation between receiver and DBs. There's none, absolutely none. The running backs.
And that's why the quarterbacks throw for like 180 yards a game. That's why it's like they're like 7 games in and they got like 800 yards passing.
I think they flashed the stats the beginning or end of the third quarter. It was like 137 yards total offense for the defenders. I was like,
let me ask you this:
they forgot to raise the shield. They didn't bring the shield.
Is there effort? Effort?
Some. I'll tell you this, Maradei and I could have played left tackle and blocked a little bit longer than the guy did for 58 or whatever his number was.
Number 58 was bad. He was bad, Chops.
Chops, I 100% guarantee you I could have done a better job on that DN. I promise you.
Hey, Chops, he did a lot of hay blocking. You know what hay blocking is? Okay. He gets past the quarterback.
A little hay.
Yeah,
I thought it was called lookout block.
Yeah. There's all kind of names for it. Whatever you want to call it. He did that shit all night. Woo!
He was a swinging gate. He didn't realize the gate didn't swing that way.
Yeah, no lock.
No. Hey, I'll tell you what though, Chops. The the guys that stood out the most were the D line. The D linemen, they got off the ball pretty good. Yeah. They shut down the run game. On both sides of the ball, the D line was pretty solid. I'll tell you this too: the freaking running backs have no vision. That's why they're playing the UFL. None.
So
what y'all think?
I know it was only one game. I get that. do you foresee? Do you think you saw many players on Sunday that are going to be on an NFL roster?
One. I got
Maybe.
one.
Hakeem Butler.
You remember
That's
him,
it.
Chops?
No.
Steelers signed him,
Yes.
last summer or the summer before?
Big 6'6", kind of big receiver.
He looked just completely different out there.
He looked like they stuck an NFL player on the UFL team.
There you go.
That's how he looked.
Do you think McCarron makes his way back on his roster?
No, man. First of all, he's 33 years old.
Okay.
If that's how a 33-year-old plays, it was in the NFL, that's
Yeah.
trash, man. That's trash.
Man.
He was trash.
It was
That looked
just
like
bad.
me playing steady quarterback on Turkey Bowl or something.
Yeah.
But to be up front, I mean, to be frank, the offensive coordinator from the DC team was bad too. Though he was bad. There was no
The plays,
bad.
Yeah,
the
he was
play
bad.
calling was just meh.
Yeah.
It was like Matt Canada calling the plays for the DC Defenders, Chops.
Basically.
That's what it was like.
Yeah. Great.
Seriously.
It
They're
was
down.
crazy.
They're down 14.
Okay.
They're down 14. Complete the pass, first down. Complete the pass, first down. Then they ran the ball 4 straight plays and turned it over on downs. What the hell was going on?
We didn't see any of the fun stuff. None
There's
of the
no
fun stuff.
no motion. They didn't do any kind of
Nothing.
motion. I mean, it was so
It was
basic.
it was bad. It was. And listen, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not an X and like these guys were X and O's. I'm just I can watch and I could tell. I was like, this ain't it. This is not it.
Oh, my
Man.
favorite. Chops, we're sitting there. Did your guys already tell him? Did you tell
No.
him
Go
Rashid?
ahead.
We're sitting there, and Rashid's like, oh, they put Butler next. Here comes the fade. Here comes
Oh.
the fade.
Oh,
They
yeah.
throw the fade. Game over. He's like, game over. Sure enough, they throw the fade.
80
Game over.
yards.
80
Man.
yard touchdown.
Okay.
80 yards.
80.
I get it was only one game. I get that. Do you see from your limited experience, will this league last longer than the XFL and or USFL?
Yeah,
Will
they'll
they
put
do
it
that?
in place too. You'll
Right.
see as time goes along, you'll see better athletes. You'll see
Yeah.
long-term training out of these guys. These guys inevitably will have a camp that's viable. They'll have off seasons that are viable. They'll put a system in place now that they've merged the two leagues. I think part of the problem was you had the XFL and the USFL, and
Right.
then you played 2 different
Right.
seasons. Now
Yeah.
that they have one league that's kind of got an eye on it from the NFL, I think they'll put together a year-round league that will have the promotion, some money backing it, so to speak, from the NFL. I see better players trickling down from the NFL. I mean, there's things that are going to happen.
Do any of you, because I don't, do any of you guys know what the salaries these guys are making, whether it be the top guy or average? Do any of you know?
We discussed that.
Yeah, we looked that up. The average is about 50,000.
But the coaches get how much, Noob?
Oh, they get like 200, I think.
That's
150,
nice, kid.
200, 250.
Oh,
yeah.
50,000. They get 400 for weekly food allowance.
Hey, Chops, that 400 hold you over for a week?
A weekend?
A weekend at Chops. Starring Chops.
Oh, shit. Oh, man.
I need to get them good vittles.
I mean, they make less than the WNBA.
Man.
Yeah.
Think about that.
It was.
Think about
It
that.
was.
But
yeah.
If they want it to be a viable league, like you asked, Chops, that's going to have to be another sticking point. These guys are going to have to make at least 100. You know, they don't need no salary cap, but they're going to need at least 100,000 to get better
Here's the
players.
thing. Even the WNBA players, some of them have the option of going overseas.
Right.
Where can some of these guys, if they don't raise the money, where would he, I guess, could they go to Canada? Where will somebody arena league?
CFL. They go to the CFL. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got you.
But if you want this league to take off, at the end of the day, you're going to have to pay them, and you're going to have to put a structure in place like the NFL has. Maybe not to the degree of the NFL because you don't have that amount of money to market it, but you're going to have something in place there. Free agency, you're going to have to keep your guys, all that stuff.
Will they need the players? Will you as a fan, the league, whatever, will they need to see much better play before they can realistically start to up their pay? Because could you justify paying the guys more what you saw on Sunday?
No, but last year the play was better. I was thinking we was going to see the defenders. I think they only lost one game, right, last year, right? They won the championship and lost.
Yeah.
So I thought we was going to see something good, but I think it was Mark who said, what did you tell us why it was probably off? Because what did you say, Mark? I forget what you said, but
I think they repicked their guys. A lot of them, don't they?
That's what it was, right? That's what you said.
So they're
right.
not. They don't sign contracts. I'm on a 4-year deal with the defenders, or you don't know, or I got you.
I don't know.
They're trying to iron out first year. They're trying to iron it out.
It just
at the end of the day, Chops. If I was a stud, but I was playing in that league, and I was making $50,000, I'd probably go back to teaching. I wouldn't do it. I'd save my body.
I mean, beating up your body. What's the use of beating up your body? What you can make? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Coach Grace was making more than them.
Oh shit. Noobs, we decided to wait for you to come on here. How'd your daughter do?
She PR'd, which is always trying to get a little bit better. I saw our buddy Watson. He got to say hi, so it was good.
What event your daughter do?
What's PR?
Shot put and discus.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was what I did when I was on the track team.
Yeah, probably she's tiny.
Eddie, you get close to my record?
Man, my best was discus didn't even count because I couldn't spin in a circle. I got dizzy. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I couldn't.
So you can't ride the merry-go-round or the thunderbolt?
No, I couldn't do it. Literally, I was standing there and just heaving it. The first time I ever threw shot put, I tried to throw it like a baseball. Because I was like a baseball. I didn't realize I only did it 1 year. 1 year I did it.
Top throw.
51?
Yeah. That's good.
That's not bad.
But I had no technique. It was muscle and everything. You know what I mean?
I hit 54 my senior year.
I was muscling everything.
Do you have the record, Mark?
Do I have the record? No. There's somebody who has 63 at Kiski.
Okay.
That's
legit. I had no technique. And the crazy thing about
go ahead, Tops.
I couldn't even get to the actual, how they put that, whatever the wood thing so your foot hits it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it because I kept disqualifying because I'd go over it. So by the time I threw it, I was a good 12, almost a foot behind it because I did it 1 year and that was it. Cousin, what's going on, man? That's my cousin, man, Savannah, Georgia. He lives here in Georgia and also Savannah on my dad's side.
What's shaking, Big L?
What's up, Al?
Hey, Mike, there were dudes when I was my senior year, I got to go to States. Sixth place was like 60 something. The first place was over 70 feet.
Yeah.
Is that what
here's the thing. When I went to track meets, I played football. I only ran track because I got suspended. And when my parents went to sign me back in, Mr. Nick, rest his soul, he talked to my mom, knew him since they were kids, and said, well, Michael doesn't get in trouble during football season because he knows if he gets suspended, he'll be. So that's why I ended up doing track. And it was only 1 year. But after a meet, I'll never forget it. We lost to Latrobe. Never forget it. You remember play football, you lose, you could hear church mouse licking cotton on the way back. But these guys are cheering, they're hyped, they're da-da-da, whatever. And it was completely different to me. It was completely different to me how track was. Now some of the people took it serious, but after the meet, win or lose, they were partying, then dancing in the street. It was completely different from football.
Chops, I'm going to tell you the truth. My junior and senior year, when we go to like West Allegheny or East Allegheny, EA, for the invitationals and stuff, we used to drink there.
No, I never did. Now, I admit, I never did that. I never did that.
After we did our events, yeah.
But there was quite a few times, you heard the coach, Mills, where's Mills? He's throwing shot. Where's Mills? Mills is trying to holler at the breezies.
You took it back with the breezies.
Let me tell you something. Heavy D and Biggie, big dudes. No, dude, I was doing it for Heavy D. Overweight Loving House. I was doing it for Heavy D.
Rest in peace, Big Half.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Big Half.
Yes. I was on it. Yes.
Fellas, let's get after this a little bit. We're going to take the first 5 or 6 questions until Noah joins us, and we're going to talk some Commanders football. Mike, I watched like 2-3 videos today about the Commanders draft. One dude was kind of he oversized it, I'll be honest with you. But the other dudes were pretty good. They were on point, I thought. Now, that's from my perspective. You probably see things like that when you look at other teams' perspectives too. But how'd they do, Mike? How'd they do addressing the picks, their biggest needs? Did they get their biggest needs?
So I would say I'd give them an A, but their biggest need was offensive tackle, and they got one dude, Brandon Coleman. They got him late. He, I guess he wasn't as high valued, but his RAS score, which is your athletic score, is off the charts. He scored a 9.98 RAS, which puts him 4 out of the last 1,421 athletes that played tackle in the NFL. He's ranked number 4 athletically. So he's super strong. He's very explosive. He has all the intangibles. It's just whether or not he can put it all together on the field. At TCU, they moved him to guard last year. And they said he didn't score as well. He was better, like his PFF score was better at tackle. I think the Commanders are going to look at him as a tackle. They have Cornelius Lucas as a left tackle right now. Now, that being said, free agency, the guys don't count. Are they somehow it opens up today where they something with the salary cap, them not counting or something like, it doesn't count towards your picks or something, your future picks. If you pick up a guy now. Whereas previously it did.
Okay.
So they may go in free agency.
You can go to almost August and have you can be at or over the cap now.
Right.
You don't have to trim it down until just about a week or so, 2 weeks before the season starts. So that's kind of a luxury for some guys. Some teams that like to manipulate that shit like they do in the NHL. Mike, I heard a guy say today that the reason they waited, and I thought this was pretty legit when he started talking about the picks they got. They had Jaden Daniels, and then they had 3 number 2s?
Yeah, 3. So they moved up to get that third number 2.
Okay.
They swapped with Philly because remember Philly moved up. So Philly moved up I can't remember what it was, 9 or something. But then Washington moved up. They swapped second and third round picks.
So the strategy that Washington had basically was to get the best athletes on the board that they can fit into their system before they start looking for that tackle.
Who had the intangibles? Almost every one of their guys was a team captain. I think 7 to 9 of them were team captains. And they say character-wise, they're all guys you can count on. Like they did a lot of research and they're all guys that led workouts. They do all the things you ask a player to do. There's no guys that they picked who are like me guys. Jaden Daniels, you're not sure yet, but the other guys are kind of like, they're like team first guys. They're studs. They work their ass off. They're kind of guys you want to work with. So I think in that aspect, I'm excited about what they got.
Mike, since you have a horse in this race, if you had the choice between Caleb Williams, and I want you to be upfront and honest, I know how I feel about him, and I voice that to you probably every day. But if you had a horse, since you have a horse in this race, and you had the opportunity to choose Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, who would you have taken?
I would take Jaden Daniels. I think he has a higher upside. I also think I like his character, and you've mentioned it about Williams. Like there's some questionable behavior that goes on with that dude, man. I don't know. And everyone says, his teammates loved him and da-da-da. Why were they so excited when he didn't play in the bowl game?
Because I'm telling you, the people who are saying his players loved him, I don't know. Those aren't people that are in the locker room. Those are media, sports heads or whatever saying that or whatever have you. But like you said, the players, we saw it on tape. They were geeked. He wasn't there.
Good.
I understand Caleb Williams is Hollywood, but you went to do a division between the Bears, the Lions, the Packers. They'll punch you in the mouth like the AFC North. That Hollywood stuff's not going to fly. I'll admit, your boy back in the day, McMahon, he wasn't this kind of Hollywood, but he wore his headband and he showed out, but he played. He put his face mask in there and he ran. He tried to run guys over. He was hardcore. I don't see Caleb Williams being able to come to Chicago with that fan base and be Hollywood. You got to get rid of that.
Did you hear him do that? He did that press conference.
The Bears.
What was that?
Let's go around everybody and tell who Who would you have picked? So say that you guys can pick anybody, the first player in the draft. Say the Commanders had the first pick. Let's go through. Mark, who would you have picked for quarterback?
I would have taken Jaden Daniels. I like the kid. I liked him at LSU. He proved himself. He proved himself at ASU. He did what everybody else did. He put himself in a better position to be drafted. But his players loved him. He has impeccable character. He's not crying on his mom's shoulder when he's not making a play.
Okay, real quick for the question you asked, Noobs, are you referring to if Washington had the first pick or still if we were Chicago? Okay.
No, say you're Washington and you have the first pick and you can pick any quarterback you want. Or say Chicago took Marvin Harrison Jr. So you can have any quarterback you want. Who would you take? Rasheen, who would you take?
I probably would have took May.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I shared this with Mark about May, and I agree with you, Shane. His WAR, wins after replacement, was at a -2 last year, 2.5, and all these other guys were 2, 3 positive, and is basically because of his weapons behind him, and he carried that team.
Yeah, he did.
He carried North Carolina.
Like Hal did his second year after he had all those guys graduate off.
So it's tough.
At the end of the day, though, none of us would have taken Caleb Williams. And we're going to ask Noah. Noah's here now. Noah Strackbein is the publisher for Inside the Panthers, All Steelers, and he's the host of All Steelers Talk. Dudes from Scranton. Ain't no party like a Scranton party, huh, Noah? Noah's made his way to the Pittsburgh sports scene in 2017, and we're real excited to have him join us tonight. What's going on, my man? How are you?
Hey, there is no party like a Scranton party. I'm happy to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to see you.
You located by Dunder Mifflin there? What's going on?
Yeah, Michael Scott is actually my
uncle. See the stack of papers. All right.
Yeah, always. That's how every house is. You were born and raised with a Dunder Mifflin paper, and they never leave.
Hey, no, before we get rocking with some draft and Steelers stuff, I just want to touch on this with you. You're the number 1 pick in the draft, and you're the Commanders. You've got Caleb Williams on the table and every other quarterback. Who are you going with?
Oh, I'm going with Caleb Williams. I need a quarterback? I'm guessing I'm the Chicago Bears. I need a quarterback. I'm going Caleb Williams. But let me tell you this. If I was the Chicago Bears, I'm keeping Justin Fields, and I'm going with Marvin Harrison, and then I'm adding to my offensive line later. That's how I would have done it. But if I got rid of Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, it's just hard to – you could talk about there's more readiness in other guys, but the upside there is real. And if you could turn it into something, that's what you're betting on in the NFL draft is how good these guys could get. So, yeah, definitely Caleb Williams.
So why is there so many mixed reviews then? Like, that's our first question for you. Why is there so many mixed reviews on him?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think it's a lot of it. I think it's the headlines more than it is anything, not the play, because the play's there. You understand the downside and the upside. I think it honestly is a lot of the Chicago Bears. They haven't been able to develop a quarterback the way that teams, other teams who have been successful developing quarterbacks have done so. They're trying and trying and trying, and Caleb Williams needs to be developed. Like he's a guy that's not going to come in here and be Patrick Mahomes, no matter how many people want to say he's going to immediately be Patrick Mahomes. You have to develop those guys into who they are. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff that you need to fix. You got to keep him in the pocket. You got to stop him from trying to be a hero on every play, but all that stuff works out if you could control it well. I mean, look at Joe Burrow. He is the ultimate, I am going to make the most out of a play. And a lot of times it's not going to go well. So, but a lot of times it does go well. So you got to look at guys like that. I think you're betting on upside. People are nervous that the Bears aren't going to get that out of them though.
I mean, I, for one, am not a big fan of his. He's really hyped up in this area because he's from this area. We personally know, Mike has coached with his high school coach, and I don't know. I'm not real big on him, and I'll just leave it at that.
I get that. I understand the Caleb Williams concerns 100%. I think that from where it is, I think that any player who goes number 1 is a little bit hyped up. They always try to make this is the next generational talent. I think Trevor Lawrence is the only guy that ever warranted that type of hype coming out of college in the last 10 plus years. But I think that in this draft class, it's hard to find a guy with more potential at the quarterback position. I think Jaden Daniels might be a close second, but it's hard to say that he wasn't the most upside guy.
Man, no, here, Chops here. Man, that to me, though, is the most dangerous word in the English language. Potential. But it really is to me. And I'm not much. Here's my thing, though. When I look at Caleb Williams, and I did think the same thing about Tua. He's finally starting to come on now.
Yeah.
Tua always had the best receivers on the field. His guys were always open. And and in the Pac-12, they play no defense. Defense is a 4-letter word. That's why, you know what I mean? So I mentioned, like, he does scramble. His guys are always open. And he probably has. I didn't watch many USC games, and I don't see a lot of his highlights where he's threading the needle, where he's throwing a rope, and threading the. No, I'm sure he's young. He has the arm, I'm quite sure. I just haven't seen it. That's why I like Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. But like I said, that's the best thing about the NFL, the draft and the season. Doesn't matter who pick, you got to play now.
You got to play. I agree. I think that we'll see what happens with both of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Jaden Daniels turns into something. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think Drake May, if you're going to rank them in order of potential, is right there at number 2 with potential or at number 3 with potential to be number 2. Like, I think his upside is somewhere around Josh Allen, but you got to get it to where it needs to be. And exactly what you said, like, potential is just potential. That's the worrisome part about drafting a guy 1st, 2nd, 3rd overall, is your team is really bad for a reason, and you got to get them to be good. And you haven't been good at developing the guys to get you out of that spot.
But he is in Caleb Williams is in a lot better position than a lot of quarterbacks that go number 1.
True.
Because they got this pick from, not because they're the worst team. And what you said about keeping Justin Fields and going with Marvin Harrison would have been phenomenal. But do you think, because I do, but I don't know how you feel, the NFL is such a copycat league and people were worried about missing out that they took Caleb Williams? When you give Fields more weapons, I think Fields can be, I think he's got talent. He hasn't had proper tutelage. No quarterback in Chicago's had proper tutelage since Sid Luckman.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I actually have my uncle's a big Bears fan. He calls me all the time about this. He's been saying it all offseason. If they trade Justin Fields, I was very excited to give him a call and say, hey, they traded Justin Fields. It happened. I agree with you. I think that there's nobody that Justin Fields never had a real opportunity, which is why I'm excited to see what Justin Fields could do in Pittsburgh over the next couple of years. But I still it's a copycat league. You're right. And it's tough to argue, hey, you're going to give up the potential at a guy who could turn out to be something special, and I think the Bears honestly did it. I don't know if they did it the best way, but I do think they did it the right way. There's justification here. You could look at the Chicago Bears and say they got rid of Justin Fields and they added Caleb Williams, but they also added to their offensive line. They added to their wide receiver core. They gave themselves some defensive help. Like, they built a team around him enough to give him a shot, whereas it kind of looked like it was just going to be Caleb Williams left out to dry again, and I don't think they did it that way. So I think they at least justified the decision of getting rid of Caleb Williams. And
since so who do you think, what team helped themselves the most, do you think, in the first round? Not overall, just first round.
I'm going to say the Arizona Cardinals are a team that stand out to me. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in this draft by a mile. And I get it. The Kyler Murray thing is worrisome, but the Arizona Cardinals weren't terrible at the end of last season. Like, they had moments where you looked at them and said, they're pretty all right. To go add Marvin Harrison Jr., to add Robinson at the end of the draft, to get some defensive help, I think that helped a ton. They focused on both sides of the ball. I don't know. I think that's a good name that helped themselves the most, maybe going out there. And then, I might be biased, but the Pittsburgh Steelers getting Troy Fautanu at 20 was ridiculous, because that guy was, I don't know, top 15 talent, maybe the third best offensive tackle in the NFL draft. I mean, J.C. Latham going in the top 10 was very surprising to me. I had Troy Fautanu way above him. So I think that's a team that helped themselves. But if I had to pick, I think Arizona was the team that really aced this first round. They looked real good.
I got you.
Hey, Noah, with all the speculation coming in, there'd be some major trades. Why do you think that didn't happen? No notable trades anyway.
I honestly think it was the position. It's always wide receiver talk. They're always the big names around the NFL draft. And I think that teams are starting to realize that, 2 years ago, you traded these guys for first round picks and then you paid them mega bucks. And sometimes it worked out. Sometimes it didn't work out. And you don't want to do that anymore. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals a couple of years ago traded for Marquise Brown in the beginning of the NFL draft, and that didn't work out for him. I mean, he was fine, but he lasted the rest of his contract in Arizona, and then he moved on. And you don't want to give up a first-round pick for that. You might as well get somebody who's cheaper in the NFL draft, get a fifth-year option on him, and then you got 5 years to see what you could turn into one of these wide receivers. And wide receiver classes are loaded when it comes to the NFL draft. Like, you can look at the numbers and say they don't work out, but when they do, you get 5 years of a cheap position.
All they do is throw the ball at every level now. So if you can't find receivers, that's bad scouting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, Mike Tomlin says it all the time, and I've heard a lot of scouts say it too. Like, you start recruiting or scouting wide receivers like in high school, really, when they're playing 7-on-7 ball, and you get that much exposure to just their route running ability and their usage of their hands and so on and so forth. So to find a wide receiver, it's just too easy. And even if it doesn't work out, like you just try again next year, or somebody hits the open market. It just, when it comes to a wide receiver trade, they're not worth it as much as they used to be in the NFL.
You're saying the pros have their eyes on wide receivers at the high school level already?
Oh yeah, 100%. The evolution of 7-on-7 is massive. Like, the fact that wide receivers and cornerbacks get so much exposure so early going to these camps, and I mean, these camps are all over. Like, Cam Newton's is the big one right now. Everybody wants to talk about it because, I mean, it's Cam Newton for first off, so it's big in general, but then it's making headlines for fights or whatever. But that does so much good. Like, that camp is one of many that give these guys so much exposure and have NFL eyes on them already. I'm not saying that they stop there. They obviously go all the way through. But you could talk to a lot of guys, a lot of coaches, and if you listen to their interviews after they draft guys, especially at the wide receiver and cornerback positions, they're talking about, I knew this kid back in high school. I was watching him back when he was wherever, because that's how much exposure they're getting. And that's how it's just the 7-on-7 camps. Like, you're literally playing football year round, and people have their eyes on you.
No, a second part to that question. So rumors are possible the 49ers are looking to dangle one of their receivers. Are there any trades do you think could happen moving forward?
Yeah, I've been told as early as, or as late as last night, when all that stuff started popping off on Twitter about the Steelers, closing in on a significant playmaker, that they were in talks with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know where those talks have gone. I was told earlier in the offseason, a couple of weeks before the draft, that the Steelers were really, really in on Brandon Ayuk, and they thought that they were going to be able to get him for cheaper than everybody expects them to get him for. So I would expect that move to happen. I don't know if it's Ayuk. I don't know if it's Deebo Samuel, but I know that they've been talking, and it's the 49ers side of things. They want too much for their wide receivers. If that doesn't work out, I think it could happen closer to training camp. I think once the 49ers find themselves in a position where they aren't able to lock up Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuels for long-term deals and afford both of them, they're going to have to make a move. I think that's when it happens. But yes, if I had to say, are both of those guys on the San Francisco 49ers in 2024? I highly doubt it.
What's up, Noah? It's the Dream here. I need to know who you thought was the biggest winner and the biggest loser.
Oh, in the NFL draft, huh?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have added that. Yes, sir.
I'll start with the biggest loser, because the biggest loser is an easy one. It's the Buffalo Bills, and I think they should be, dissolved from the NFL for letting the Kansas City Chiefs get that much better. Like, I don't know how anybody sat there and was like, was that a good idea? Who was like, yep, let's make a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs and give them Xavier Worthy, because there's nothing more dangerous than Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy and Rashid Rice whenever he comes back and is available. And then you have Travis Kelce. Like, that was just a wild move. And I think Keon Coleman's fine, but I don't think that he is Xavier Worthy. I think there's a totally different tier of wide receiver there. And, Keon Coleman to me is a late second round pick and not a first pick in the second round. So I don't get that one. Obviously, you talk about the Atlanta Falcons, they're up there too with just the first pick alone. Like, Michael Penix, what are you doing? Like, it just doesn't. I like the idea. I like the thought process. Get somebody who's going to develop behind Kirk Cousins. Don't get the guy who's going to be 28 pushing 29 when he's ready to take over for Kirk Cousins, because that guy's already almost fully developed. You're not going to get much more out of him. That's a Jaden Daniels. That's a That's a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, a guy who clearly needs a year or two to continue to learn, and you're going to put him behind somebody who's a Pro Bowl quarterback in Kirk Cousins. That makes sense. Michael Penix does not. But I would say those two, the biggest losers. The biggest winners, I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers got to be up there. That they aced every single one of their picks, in my opinion, outside of maybe the 6th round, and I still like their 6th round picks and what they got. I mean, to add 2 offensive linemen that are going to be immediate starters, and then Mason McCormick, who will probably be a starter in 2 years if things work out well, to add a guy like Peyton Wilson, who, I mean, you could talk about his knee injuries. I get it. Maybe he's a one-contract guy. We'll find out. But just talent alone, looking beyond the injuries, this guy's got the potential to be a late 1st round, early 2nd round pick in a normal draft. And then Roman Wilson, I thought, was a 2nd round pick. Like, if we're going to be honest, I thought Roman Wilson on my board was higher than Keon Coleman. Like, that's where I kind of placed those guys. So I think that was a massive move. I think they helped themselves a lot. I think the Arizona Cardinals killed this draft. They focused pretty much everywhere and aced all of them. I think the Denver Broncos did really well, too, if you take away Bo Nix. I don't like the quarterback pick. I think you should have waited there. I think you could have got something better. But I think the rest of those moves were really good ones, and they add everywhere that you go. So I would say those 3 are my winners, and the Falcons and the Bills are my losers.
Is that desperation that Bo Nix picked because all those other quarterbacks went?
Yes, 100%. And Sean Payton talking about, I had to coax the Minnesota Vikings into trading up for J.J. McCarthy is such a lie. There's no chance. Like, I'm sorry, but there are smoke screens in the NFL, and you can kind of tell when they're real and when they're not. And this one was definitely not. They were just, that's a panic move. That's where we need to go, and that's what they did.
Got you.
Okay.
Chuck, you're muted.
Hi, you get muted, Sizzle.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear him.
All right, real quick. Noah, were you more surprised with Penix being taken, or even the fact they gave a 35-year-old guy $100 million guaranteed?
So I think I'm more surprised. Yeah, that's true. Coming off an Achilles. I think that Michael Penix surprised me more. I think Kirk Cousins is a worth maybe not $100 million guaranteed. I think that was a little bit wild, but I think he was worth a big contract. I think Kirk Cousins makes you a Super Bowl contender. Like, I get that he hasn't gotten there. I get that he's not a guy he's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not, whoever you want to toss out there as a Super Bowl winning quarterback who immediately makes you a contender. But I think he's got the potential to get you there. And I think Atlanta's a much better team than how they look. Like, I think last year the quarterback play was so bad that it really did hold them back, and it limited everything you could do, and that's why they struggled. I think Kirk's worth money, not that much money. I don't know anybody who is worth that much money who's over the age of 30, but that's not bad.
And I thought, because you mentioned name Aaron Rodgers, I think because of what the Falcons saw happen, and they are better than people give, their record shows. I think they're better. I think because of what happened to Rodgers, the Falcons did what they did. Because if they'd have had a decent quarterback, Penix is a great talent. I don't know, since you put all that money into, like you said, Cousins, if you take him 1st round, but if he's not healthy enough to go, or they lose him 3rd or 4th week and he re-injures that, now you don't, I mean, he'd be better than like a Bryce Wilson, backup that the Jets had to deal with. And I wonder if what they saw the Jets go through, because they were ready in every position except quarterback. Rodgers goes down and they're out of it. Now, again, we don't know what Penix will do, but I wonder if that's, why they took Penix 1st round.
So let me just play devil's advocate here. If you don't take Penix, and you got NFL teams have a pretty good sense of the board. Like they have a pretty good idea how these things are going to fall down. I think that they had a pretty good sense that there would be a lot of quarterbacks that went early and then they'd stop. The quarterbacks would be over. I know that the Las Vegas Raiders were not very high on Bo Nix, and that was probably the last team that would have taken a quarterback. I mean, if you just let it rock and you went somewhere else and Penix ends up in Denver, let's say, and Bo Nix makes it to the 2nd round, is that good enough? Because I think that's just as good of an option, and you probably get, and you do get a top 10 talent in the NFL draft, which I don't think Michael Penix is.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of the Raiders, were you shocked as hell that they took Brock Bowers?
I was, but I think at that point it's just the best player available, and Brock Bowers was by far the best player available. Like, you could make things out of great players, especially tight ends. Like, like tight ends are versatile in the NFL these days, and you could, like, everybody's looking for a Travis Kelce because Travis Kelce could be a number one wide receiver and a number one tight end at the same time. And I think Brock Bowers has that potential. So I was more surprised that he just kept falling because he's a guy I thought was going top 10. And I thought teams were going to try to trade up to get him, honestly.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we hear you, Sis.
I thought you said I was muted. All right, Sis here. Hey, Noah, NFL football is almost 12 months. It's almost year round, right? From the OTAs to the combine to the pro days. If you look at all these players coming up through the draft, are there any unexpected players who help their case with these different opportunities? Like I said, the pro days, combine, or any that hurt themselves?
Ooh, so I do. I think that's a good question. So I'm going to go guys that really help themselves. Obviously, Xavier Worthy. You do that. To be honest with you, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. I know I've mentioned this name too many times, so I'll try to give you another example too. But I think a guy who might have changed the entire future of the NFL is Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I think him saying, I'm the top wide receiver in this draft class. There are no questions asked. You need to stop worrying about it. And I am not going to test in front of all of you to lower my draft stock. I'm just going to let my tape do the talking. Made him the first wide receiver in the NFL draft class. I think it was, I'm not going to give you concerns because there are no concerns when you watch the actual tape. And I think that him not testing boosted his draft stock a ton, because I think if he tested, he probably would have been a little bit slower than you hoped. And there would have been real conversations about whether or not it's him or Malik Neighbors. And I think there were conversations, but I'm talking like there would have been a real shot that Malik Neighbors went as the first wide receiver over Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, Xavier Worthy's a really good one. Guys who hurt their stock. I mean, Matt Goncalves out of Pitt is a guy who a year ago was viewed as like a late second round pick, and then he tested at his pro day terribly after coming back. I was honestly surprised that Cooper DeJean didn't go higher in the NFL draft after how good he looked at his pro day after not testing at the NFL Combine. I thought that was a name that surprised me that fell into the second round. And Troy Franklin, too, out of Oregon. Like, him dropping as much as he did, very, very much so surprised me because he looked good throughout the draft process and was a name. Spencer Rattler should have helped his draft stock, but did not. And I think that's where things get crazy. Is like there are a lot of guys that looked really good. Quinion Mitchell was another example. Absolute stud during this draft process. Doesn't go as high as everybody expects him to go. Brian Thomas is another one. Like, it's just very surprising that these guys looked really good but didn't get their draft stock increased.
On that same note, were there any prospects that we heard about or knew of throughout this process that that went undrafted?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's an easy answer there. That's Beanie Bishop out of West Virginia. All-American last year, ran a 4.39 in his 40, put up, I believe, 19 reps on his bench press, something crazy like that. And he's like 5'8", 5'10". Like, he's a little dude, and he's a monster. And I thought he was getting drafted. I thought he was an option for the Steelers in the 6th round. He went undrafted. They were able to sign him. Shocking that they were able to sign him. I did not expect him to be available. The other name that really stands out there is Dylan Johnson out of Washington. That dude was a monster this past season, like crazy monster, like able to catch the football, able to pass block, able to run block, able to, run the football up the middle, work the outside. Like, I get he dealt with some injuries, but when he was on the field, he was really, really good. I expected him, honestly, like I looked at him as a possible like 4th, 5th round pick. He went undrafted. I would say those two were easily the biggest names on my book.
Hey, does Beanie slot in? He makes the Steelers. He go in the slot.
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't know. I try to hold back expectations on guys that go undrafted. Like, there's all that Corey Trice talk about, like, oh, Corey Trice is going to be the guy who, takes a step forward this year. And, you just don't know. You don't see guys play. You have no idea what the expectations are. And I think that's where we are with Beanie Bishop. Want to see him on the field, but he does. do say he gives me Mike Hilton vibes. Like he's a guy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too.
Yeah,
that's
he's
exactly
physical, he's fast, he's quick, he's twitchy, like he's got good in coverage. I mean, this guy, he led the NCAA last year with 20 pass breakups and 4 interceptions. Like, I would say.
How does he slip through the cracks?
I don't know. I have no idea how this guy went undrafted. The way that the board shook out this year was wild, especially after like the second round. Like once we got later into the draft, like Michael Pratt going in the 7th round, Kalen King going in the 7th round that's a 2nd round draft pick. Like that is a guy that 2 months ago people are talking about in the 2nd round, goes in the 7th. I have no idea how it happened. The board shook out wild this year.
Maybe it was his size. Is he actually 5'9" or 5'8"?
Yeah, he's tiny. He's like, I think they list him at 5'10", which means that there's no chance he's 5'10".
That's what I go at.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think he benched probably 18 more reps than me. So
yeah.
He's
yeah,
right.
same.
He'll be right.
Same. But that's, I mean, I think little dudes work out all the time. I mean, you look at, Russell Wilson's little, the perfect example out of Pittsburgh is Landon Roberts is a guy that you stand next to him and you're like, nah, you're listening at 6 foot, pal. And I'm 5'8" and I'm staring you right in the forehead. Like there's no way. But they work out, you know what I mean? And I think slot corner's a position you don't got to be big. As long as you're good, you don't got to be big.
No, on the same lines there, like you talked about Troy Franklin. Like I was shocked he was still around in the 4th round. Is insane. What causes that? What do you think caused that?
With him, I have no idea. Like there are certain guys where you get the headlines, you see the injury concerns or so on and so forth. I have no idea. Like, I don't know why guys ranked wide receivers so much differently than the media ranked them. I have no idea how that got twisted. Troy Franklin I've talked to scouts and people after the draft, and they were just as surprised as me. Like, Troy Franklin falling that far, that should have never happened. Should have never happened. That dude is, he's got 2nd round potential, but at that worst, he's the bottom of the 3rd round. Like, you're just looking at him as, like, hey, somehow he slipped through the cracks. To make it to day 3 is nuts. Even if he was like whatever the 1st or 2nd pick on day 3, shouldn't have never happened. I don't know. Like that's a very surprising one. There were a lot of those guys this year though, where there's like just no explanation of why it happened, but it just happened.
TJ Temple comes to mind for me. TJ Tampa.
TJ Tampa.
There,
exactly. TJ Tampa.
Like, how's he still here?
Exactly. The whole draft. And TJ Tampa's a good one. Cam Hart is another good one out of Notre Dame. Like that dude could turn out to be something. You go watch the tape against him and Marvin Harrison. Like during that game, the announcers the whole time we're talking about how this guy is going to dominate and be like such a big name in the NFL and blah, blah, blah. And there goes day 3. He's chilling there. And for a while, like there were a ton of them.
He's from this area, isn't he?
Yeah, he went to good counsel.
Him and Chris Jenkins.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, he's going to be, I've been, the exact words I got were this guy is probably the most underappreciated guy in the NFL draft. That's what I got heading into day 3. That was a text I got.
Hey, Noah, do you think this draft was just loaded though? Like, is this just a really good draft? Is that why so many guys shook out like that?
So that's really hard to say because it turned out to be a loaded draft. Like it turned out to be a draft where you got guys all over the place, and without, like, as crazy as it sounds, without like many shocking picks, like without many people going like, what was that? That was wild. Even throughout the entire draft. But it was not looked at as that going into the draft. Like you talk to people heading into the draft and they tell you after pick like 80 to 100, this draft falls right off a cliff and teams are going to be looking to go up because they're not going to want to sit back and get guys that aren't worth the draft stock in the 4th round and the 5th round. So going into it, people thought this was going to be a bad back half of the draft, a loaded front half, and somehow it turned into a loaded. This is the most, I bet this is my 5th NFL draft covering it for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this was by far the most shocking draft I've ever been a part of.
Let's face it, this is a COVID draft. A lot of these guys were seniors in high school.
True.
If they played 4 years of college, this was their draft. And what the hell did you do over COVID? If you were going to be an athlete, you were lifting, working out. That's what else do you have to
do? Very true. Very true.
It's
true. It's true. And you get a lot of older guys. You get a lot of 5th, 6th year guys who get those extra years to develop. So they look good. I agree.
All right, Noah, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who are your favorites to be offensive and defensive rookie of the year for this season?
And so, I mean, you got to go with the obvious one on offense with Caleb Williams. You know, it's tough not to say.
And we tell
Caleb
you,
Williams.
we don't want them.
You're not big on the Caleb Williams. I know. But I don't trust the Commanders. I really don't trust the Commanders, and I won't until proven otherwise. I don't think a guy like Drake May is going to start right off the bat. I think that Jacoby Brissett's going to be that guy. You know, you could look at wide receivers, but that's a little tougher. If I had to give you like an off the wall one, Bucky Irving is a name to watch. I think that dude is good.
From Oregon.
Oh, he's a stud. That dude is so good. He's so fast. He's so physical. Like, I think Bucky Irving's going to be a monster. And in Carolina, I don't think they're going to be very good, but I think that he could be like a, all around kind of utilized running back. And I have high hopes for him. Ricky Pearsall would be my other like off the wall bet here, because I mean, to go to San Francisco as a slot guy, what are you doing? Like, you made Juwan Jennings look like a monster. I can only imagine what you're going to do with Ricky Pearsall. And that's no disrespect for Jennings. I think he's good, but he is no Ricky Pearsall.
I'm sorry. Defense. I'm going to tell Noobs to drop his question about McConkey and McCaffrey on Noah. See what he thinks.
Well, I was surprised the Skins or Commanders took McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And when they still had Troy Franklin on the board, like McCaffrey, when I watch his film, he doesn't get much separation.
No.
And his numbers are off the charts, but you're like, it doesn't seem to translate onto the field. What are your thoughts on him as a receiver?
I think I agree with you. I was surprised. Like I saw him as a 4th round pick. If the board shook out the way that I thought it was going to shake out, I don't have him above really a couple of guys that went in the 4th round after him. I don't know. Like, I think to a degree, you're kind of taking a shot on the McCaffrey name and what he could do with the bloodline. And I think there's real like tangible evidence that works out a lot of the time, where these guys come in here, and if they have family that's in the NFL and they could work with that family and train with that, like, it works out, like they have it's different if it's like, oh, this guy's coming and his dad played in the NFL, like the Jeremiah Trotter thing, the Brendan Rice thing. Like, I don't know. I think that was a little bit overhyped. Like, these guys weren't that good, and I get that why they fell, but their dads aren't going to sit around and train them, and push them the way that, like, in the offseason, if Luke and Christian are working out, like Luke's working out, potentially the best offensive player in football. Like, I think that helps a ton. And I saw it firsthand with, TJ and JJ and Derek and the stories there, and how much better that, you just get season after season because you're working out with those guys. So I think that they took a shot there, but I agree with you. I don't think there's anything on tape that stands out about that guy that makes me think he's the 3rd round pick, especially over a name like Troy Franklin.
Man. All right. Well, keep it, Noah. We thought there were going to be some trades, storylines that we have to be able to talk about. We didn't really get any that we know of. But do you know any storylines that emerge, whether it be on or off the field or behind the scenes, that that we the fans still don't know about, or whatever have you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wide receiver trade market was very real during the NFL draft. That teams were definitely calling the Denver Broncos and the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks for DK Metcalf, that all that was real. That was all happening. And it didn't make a lot of noise and a lot of headlines because none of it happened, but that stuff was constant throughout the entire NFL draft, right from start to finish. Again, the only reason none of it materialized is because these teams aren't willing to give up, a 1st round pick and $26 to $30 million for a guy that they're going to get for 2 years, compared to a guy that they could get for 5 that they believe could turn into something like that in a year or two. So that was definitely real. There was a lot of conversation. The 49ers, I think it's hilarious every time John Lynch says that we aren't moving these guys, that we're not talking trade, and shuts it all down. They're definitely talking trade. Like, that's real. It's definitely happening, even if it's not coming to fruition. But the wide receiver market would be the real one.
Now, as you had talked about, like, the different wide receivers and names you had named, and you had said earlier you expected to go closer to about camp time when they realized. Yeah. Do you expect to see any moves for any players after, like, what is that, the June 1st cuts?
Yeah, so June 1st cuts, like, trade-wise, you're talking trades?
Trade-wise, or.
Yeah, so the trade, I expect June 1st like changes a lot of things. Like the DK Metcalf thing is good for the trade for the June 1st, because then the Seattle Seahawks take a much less cap hit than they do if they trade them before June 1st. But they could also post date it. Like they could also make the trade now and post date it to June 1st. So I do expect somebody to get moved. Like I don't know what name it would be. I would say that the 4 or 5 now that we've been talking about in Ayuk, Samuel, Cortland Sutton, and DK Metcalf, those are the names that are certainly up for grabs. And I do, like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I expect one of them to get moved.
Any of them in Pittsburgh end up in Pittsburgh?
And I think one of them ends up in Pittsburgh. I do. I definitely do.
All right, Noah, you're Omar Khan.
Yeah.
You put some stuff out there to each one of them. Who do you want? You're going to give up what you put out to each one of them. Who do you want?
Hey, Zay Jones is available now, by the way.
Yeah, Zay Jones is a good option, I think, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think he's as good as these options, but I think he's a good like number 3. Come in here and be a guy why Roman Wilson is your number 2, and hope that, you know, Calvin Austin eventually turns into number 3 and Zay Jones could bounce down to number 4. Like I think that's a perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think honestly, like I'd go cheaper route if possible. So that's where I think there's 2 answers here. There's the like ideal, you know, if everything works out and who cares about the money, the salary cap isn't real situation. It's Brandon Ayuk, and it's easily Brandon Ayuk. Like that guy is ridiculous. You know, he's a number 1B maybe on a team where like he should be a number 1, and he'd be a number 1 anywhere else in the NFL almost. He's definitely the ideal situation if money wasn't a real thing. If you're going to be realistic about it, Cortland Sutton is the name that makes the most sense. I think he comes in here. He's got a $13 and a $13.5 million cap hit the next 2 seasons. He's 28 years old, so you're only going to get him for 2 years, and then you're going to move on. That's all you need him. Like you could add another wide receiver in the next 2 years and make that work. Then you paid George Pickens and you stop paying Cortland Sutton and you get a quarterback. And I think Cortland Sutton's the name that makes the most sense for the Steelers. But if you're going to be ideal, Brandon Ayuk brings the best talent.
They need some.
Don't you have a quarterback on your roster though, in Justin Fields?
No, I think you do, but you don't know what you're going to get out of him. Like I don't think you could overhype a guy like Justin Fields yet. I do think they extend him. I think that they keep him for another 2 years on a cheap deal just to see what they could get out of him. And then if Russ looks really good during the season, they try to extend him. And, you know, sorry, Justin, at some point, maybe you'll get your shot somewhere.
But that wide receiver room doesn't have any leadership right now. Those guys are all young, and they need some veteran to come help.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of those guys, like they were, Cortland Sutton would be the best one, to be honest with you, when it comes to leadership. Like Ayuk worries me. Deebo Samuel worries me. DK Metcalf, if I'm a Steelers fan, I am terrified of adding DK Metcalf. He's a phenomenal talent, but he is the biggest hothead in the NFL, and that is the last thing that you need when you're trying to like mentor a young wide receiver. Because and then like I'm not like I think off the field DK Metcalf is a great leader and a great, you know, like I've heard nothing but good things. But on the field, you know, he tends to get flagged a lot, and that's not what you need as the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's why they brought Russell Wilson in, because and Arthur Smith, because you know you needed no nonsense, you needed true leaders, and they went out and got 2 of them.
Yeah, and it's so evident because I don't think the leadership has been there for quite some time in Pittsburgh. I think it's moved on or retired.
Yep, I agree. And I think they needed it, and they desperately needed it last year. Like everybody could talk about Matt Canada, and that's why, you know, he was gone because he stunk and he wasn't good at calling plays, so on and so forth. I agree with all that, but the real reason he left is because he completely lost control of that offense. There was nobody in that locker room anymore that he could lead, and Art Rooney and everybody had enough of it, and they let him go.
I've got one more question for you, and it's a Steelers-oriented question. What's the real deal with Kenny Pickett? What happened?
I'll tell you, what happened was exactly how it went down. You know, I think it was overblown. You know, what people were saying and you know, calling him out for not wanting to compete and so on and so forth. I agree with that, but I do think it was a little bit much. Like, so Kenny was aware of the situation that they were talking with Russell Wilson. This is what I've been told. Kenny was aware of the situation that, you know, they were considering adding Russell Wilson, but he was told that, you know, they're bringing in Russell Wilson because they want 2 quarterbacks that they believe can lead them to the playoffs, him and Russell Wilson. That's where the conversation ended. And he was all for it. He was a true professional. Sounds good. I'm about it. Let's go. Then Russell Wilson gets signed, and Mike Tomlin lets Kenny know, hey, Russ is going to take the first snaps of OTAs. He's going to be viewed as the pole position starter. And Kenny was like, well, that's ridiculous. That's not what happened to me. And then, obviously you had a ton of hate from the fans. You had a ton of criticism. You had everything. And I think all that built up. At least I've heard that it all built up. And eventually he hit a point where I was like, I think it's best if I leave. I'm not saying it's justified, but I think it was a little bit overblown to what it was made out to be. But that's how it all went down. And then meanwhile, the Steelers were like, okay, sounds good. If you want to leave, you leave. We'll call Chicago right now. We already had a deal in place before we signed Russell Wilson, and we put that on pause because we signed Russell Wilson. You want to dip, we'll get Russ, or we'll get Justin Fields.
Volunteers, not hostages.
Volunteers, not hostages. All right. And I got two of them.
They don't have to order any more small gloves.
And they don't, yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Sizzle.
I was going to say, 2026, where are we watching a draft party at Pittsburgh?
In Pittsburgh, right on the North Shore. I fully anticipated coming to Pittsburgh. I tell Art Rooney every time he says anything about it, has a big smile on his face because I think he knows draft's coming to Pittsburgh.
All right, we'll be there.
How many rooms you got in your place?
Yeah, we'll be up there.
We're gonna bring
what do we got here? 5? I don't know. Unless we're sharing beds, I don't think I can make it happen.
Pause.
Those are 2 pillows.
We got 2 pillows.
All right.
We got a couple of floors.
Last question, Noah.
Trains and automobiles.
Before you go, Noah, and you get to shout out yourself and tell people where they can find you. Last question. You said you had 5. You've been in 5 years as far as the draft with the Steelers.
Yep.
Colbert versus Kahn. Did Colbert leave us kind of empty? Because I went back and did all his drafts, and I think I said, I forget the number I came up with, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad. I think I have it here, but go ahead. I'm listening.
So I want to start off. I think Kevin Colbert's a phenomenal GM. I think he did a phenomenal work. I think at the end of Kevin Colbert, his drafts were a little rough. Like not the greatest, and especially Omar Khan comes in here, completely changes how the Steelers are looking and really how they think about things. I think that's the biggest thing is he brought some youth and some new age football when it comes to the general manager position to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it has worked out every way you could possibly imagine it was going to work out. So I mean. I'm not going to compare. I think Omar Khan's body of work is too small right now to compare them over time. Mm-hmm. But I would be so excited about it. And I can just tell you this, like, I see Omar Khan all the time, constantly, like on a daily basis during the season. I get to do cool things during the off season. Like I was at the owners meeting and Art Rooney takes a bunch of us out to dinner and Omar Khan's there. And, Roger Goodell throws this big party and Omar Khan's there and so on and so forth. And, you're talking and mingling and down in Indianapolis, obviously for the combine, you're talking and mingling. This dude is always working. Always. He is constantly on his phone. He is constantly calling. I bust him all the time. I'm like, dude, can I please have a night off? Can you stop doing this to me? I don't care about you. You'll get your sleep when you need it. I don't want to work tonight, so I need you to get off the phone. That guy's always working. I think the upside of the Pittsburgh Steelers is massive because of what he could bring, especially during the offseason.
So to me, and I get a lot of guys that are saying, and I'm like, Khan is doing a thing. And they're like, no, Tomlin has his say too. Well, here's my thing. But here's my thing, Noah. When Tomlin was there, we didn't see this kind of movement. Now, Colbert's gone. Tomlin's still there. This offseason, these guys will tell you whenever any name was up, when Wilson was up, Fields, I was like, fellas, they're not going to bring him. They don't bring in splash players. They don't bring in this. Now Khan's there, and they're doing it.
Yeah.
So my thing, if I get a new girlfriend and all of a sudden I start smoking, you're not going to say, Mike, that's your girlfriend's idea. Yeah. Tomlin's still been there, but Khan's the new guy, and we're seeing new things.
So I agree with that. I do agree that there's. Why didn't you see it in the past? But I also think that the opportunity has to present itself. Like Mike Tomlin isn't making the calls to Russ to, try to negotiate a contract and bring him in for a visit and so on and so forth. Like that starts with the GM when Mike Tomlin says he strictly lives in a vacuum where he focuses on his team and what he can do for his team. He's not lying. Like he focuses on who are the guys on this roster and how do I make them the best players possible. The rest of it is on the GM. And And I'm not saying that Mike would say like, oh yeah, bring Russ in years past, because I don't think that that's 100% true. But I do think that Omar Khan presents many more opportunities for him over the last 2 years to do these things than Kevin Colbert did, especially late in his career. Like, I think Omar just puts them in place and then goes to Mike and says, look, we could get Russ for $1.2 million. You know, we could trade Chase Claypool for a second-round pick, and Tomlin's got to make that decision. And I think he says yes because they're too good to pass up.
But even Parcells, a great Parcells said, if they're going to ask you to cook the dinner, at least they can let you pick the groceries. So Tomlin never had anything. You know, that's my only thing. You know what I mean? I'm a Tomlin guy. I really like him. But now that we got Khan, we're, like I said, we're seeing things we've never seen. It's like, okay, so you've been here X amount of years, Tomlin, and they never let you pick, or you said who you wanted and they said beat it. You know, I don't know.
I agree. I don't think that the scouting, I'm not trying to defend, like, you know, I agree with you. And I don't think the scouting was up to par when it came to Tomlin and all those guys as much as it is right now. I'll toss a very sleeper name out there. I think Andy Weinhold deserves a ton of credit in this because I think he is a natural dominant scout who
he
just
did his
has
thing in Philly.
Exactly. Like, he's got an eye for the, I mean, and before that he did his thing in Baltimore. Baltimore kills the NFL draft every single year. Like, this guy knows how to scout good players. And I think that's the biggest thing is, like, yes, I agree with you that Tomlin probably should have done more and had better decisions. And I agree with that 100%. But I think the last 2 seasons, the view of these guys is much better because they changed things enough where they have better eyes on things.
Yeah. They came into the current century. Hey, I want to do one more thing with you, and then and then, like Rashid said, we're going to let you tell everybody where to find you.
Cool.
I'm going to give you a question, and I want you to give me either 1 or 2 word answers. Omar Khan, whiskey, beer, or wine?
Omar Khan, whiskey.
Okay.
Nice.
Mike Sullivan, Narduzzi, or Tomlin? Who's better?
Tomlin.
Who do you like better? Huh?
Tomlin.
Yeah. Funniest guy in that Steeler locker room.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Funniest guy in the Steelers locker room. I'm gonna throw you a name. Oh, I'll give you 2 actually.
Is Pat Peterson one?
No, Pat Peterson was funny. He was a funny dude. I will give him that. 2 guys in the Steelers locker room that are hilarious. The first one, sleeper, Rodney Williams, 3rd string, 4th string tight end. Hilarious. Yeah. Second guy, Landon Roberts. That guy is the scariest, funniest human being you'll ever meet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which one of these teams is next to win a championship? The Steelers, the Penguins, or the Pirates? And this is the last one, I promise.
Has anybody ever answered this question? Has anybody ever answered this question? The Pirates? Has that ever been a thing? I don't think it ever will be a thing. I'm gonna say the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'll ride with you on that. Hey, the Pirates just lost 5-1. They had that ass handed to them out in Oakland last night. That was embarrassing. 2 hits. First play of the game, or first pitch of the game, they got a base hit, and then they only got 1 more against Oakland. It's
a tough for the. You want to talk about con artists, whatever. The Buccos were con artists earlier in the season when they said, "Hey, look, we could score runs. This is great," and then now they straight up lied to us. So not happening.
It's been awesome having you here with us.
Yeah,
I'm going to track you down again to get you on here with us. We'll do something. We'll have you prepared to talk more football down the road, maybe a little hockey. Tell everybody where they can find you, please.
Yeah. So you can check out the podcast at youtube.com/allsteelerstalk. And then you can check out all my work at allsteelers.com or si.com/NFL/Steelers. And then, check me out on Twitter or wherever at Noah Strackbein. I appreciate you guys. This has been a blast.
No, appreciate having you on, brother.
Yes, sir,
Thanks
guys.
So
appreciate
much,
you.
2026.
Yep. Take care.
Go Steelers. Fellas, that was good insight on a bunch of fronts, and we didn't just keep it to Steelers. So that's what made me happy. We were able to spread it around. Noobs, I'm sorry we got some of those Washington questions cut off, but I think we did address some of the most important things, and that was your quarterback there in Washington, Jane Daniels. And just, to be honest with you, Noobs, their draft shows that they've had a complete change of mentality in Washington. That's a team to watch out for. I really believe I really believe you've got something going on there. Chops, I know you got a role. Tell everybody where they can find Chops.
Man, come on now. You can find me you can find your boy Chops on Twitter at the Real Big Chops. I'm on the gram at Big Chops 79. I'm on Facebook by my government name, Michael Gregory Mills, MGM. You know where you can find your boy. Listen to me. When you want the tidbits, come to the Original Sports Podcast. We're giving it up and we're letting you know where to find it. Fellas, if ESPN calls me one more time, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to be with you guys. I don't know.
Hey, now listen.
Go do your paperwork, man. Go do your paperwork.
We are giving better stipends than the XFL, UFL, whatever they're calling it. Yes,
man.
Hey,
fellas,
Chops, we'll take care of you when you come out to be with the boys.
Oh, Joseph Timberlake, he's going to ride solo now. Okay.
Where do you see Noob's
Michael
place?
Jackson
We'll
over
have
there.
steaks ready to go.
I'll get you some good chicken wings.
Fellas, don't threaten me with a good time. Steak and chicken wings, your boy will, man, I'll be laid up like a dead roach.
Little Hennessy.
He'd be like this.
All right, fellas, take it easy.
I'll get the hammock. I'll get the hammock set when you come.
You better get it reinforced.
We got to get them steel cables.
Listen to me. I'm not letting no hammock fall out of hammock, break all my shit. Nah, bro. Not your boy. Holla.
Hey, oh man, always a great time, fellas. Our next show next Tuesday, we're going to be with the Premier Lacrosse League co-founder, president, CEO, Michael Rabel. Yeah, Michael Rabel. I'm so excited to have Mike on. I'm so excited to promote some lacrosse. That's going to be an amazing time. Fellas, tell them where they can find you. Let's start with the Dream.
You can find me everywhere. Next.
He's on Facebook. He's on Instagram.
He's easy to find.
He's easy to find.
Easy.
Rasheen.
I'm on X and Instagram at Coach Noob.
Same at One Young Terry.
Yes, sir. Hey, connect with us here on the Original Sports Podcast by checking out our pod page, podpage.com, Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maradei. Like our Facebook page, join our conversation on Twitter, and also check us out on Snapchat. All of that is OSP with MM. Finally, we're on Instagram. A lot of TikToks lately. We've been pushing the TikTok. And we're on YouTube, as always, at Original Sports Podcast. A big shout out to our networks we're part of. We're in with Let's Talk Sports Network, Sideline Sports Network, ESEN, which is Elite Sports and Entertainment Network, and also Manning Media Network. You can catch us tonight. If you missed this show or only caught part of it, we're going to be on Roku. We're on Roku every Tuesday night from 9 to 10 on ESEN. Feel free to reach out to us with questions, comments, concerns. Give us a shout out once in a while. Send us a really nice email, okay? Please, at originalsportspodcast@gmail.com. My guy, Steve Medley, does our voice intro. Our guy, Charlie Hodgson, does our music.
Chucky.
Join us next Tuesday to experience the O on the Original Sports Podcast.